Has Ferrari really created a competitive car? Or is Lewis Hamilton making a car that still has critical limitations look competitive? Because what happened at the Chinese GP is not normal, it is not logical, and within the team itself there is real surprise. A driver who arrives new in only his second Grand Prix begins to move at podium pace, controls degradation like no one else on the grid, and also explains to the engineers exactly where the car's problem is, better than his own data. Hamilton didn't just get into the Ferrari, he figured it out. And the most worrying or the most exciting thing, depending on how you see it, is that this performance came even when the SF26 continues to have clear disadvantages on the straight compared to Mercedes. So the big question is inevitable. Are we seeing the rebirth of Hamilton, or the beginning of an internal revolution at Ferrari that could change the entire season? Because we come from a start to the season where the reality was very different. Ferrari had not started as a dominant team, far from it, and Hamilton himself was still in the process of adaptation, understanding a completely new car, with a philosophy different from anything he had driven in recent years. It was not a scenario of immediate results, it was a project under construction. And yet, in Shanghai everything changes. Since Friday, something different begins to be perceived, but not in an obvious way. It's not that Ferrari came out on top, nor that Hamilton scored a spectacular pole from the start. It's something more subtle, more technical, more profound. It's the way you start building your weekend, lap by lap, setting by setting, as if you're piecing together a complete understanding of the car in real time. But what is really important is that this progress was not linear. In the first free practice, Hamilton was far from that image of total control. In fact, he showed clear symptoms of discomfort, blockages in the rear, loss of stability in critical corners, and a spin that set off alarms within the team. Ferrari was not clear. It did not understand if the problem was one of configuration, balance, or simply adaptation of the driver. That moment is key because it defines the real starting point. Internal doubts, an unstable car, and a driver who still did not have total control of the situation. And this is where Hamilton's differential factor comes in. Between that problematic session and the sprint classification, something changes radically. It's not just another adjustment, it's not a marginal improvement, it's a complete transformation of the car's behavior. The SF26 goes from being unpredictable to becoming a precise tool, with a much more neutral balance and a consistent response that allows you to push without fear. But the most important thing is not the change in the car, it is how Hamilton interprets it. Because from that moment on, his driving behavior changes completely. It becomes extremely clean, calculated, without excesses. Every corner entry, every acceleration phase, every tire management has a clear purpose. You're not reacting to the car, you're anticipating it. And that is directly reflected in the data. Hamilton is beginning to maintain a constant pace in the top three, both in qualifying and in the race, something that Ferrari had not achieved with such solidity in the first rounds of the year. But beyond the position, what really stands out is the consistency in long runs, where it not only remains competitive, but directly surpasses rivals like Mercedes in tire degradation. This is no coincidence. It is the result of extremely accurate reading of the car, understanding exactly where the limit is, and, above all, how to stay within the optimal window for longer than anyone else. And this is where the real impact within the team begins. Because while Hamilton executes on the track, something equally important happens in the garage. His feedback. They are not generic comments, they are not vague sensations. It is concrete, direct information aligned with the data. It identifies straight line losses, problems in energy deployment, structural weaknesses of the car, and it does so with a clarity that connects perfectly with the work of engineers. That changes the internal dynamic. Ferrari stops blindly searching for answers and starts working on a clear direction. And that direction comes in large part from Hamilton himself. That is why what we are seeing in China is not simply a good weekend. It is the first moment in which Hamilton stops being a driver in adaptation and begins to become the technical axis of the project. And when that happens in a team like Ferrari, the consequences can be enormous. And this is where the story stops being simply surprising and starts to become dangerous for the rest of the grid. Because it's one thing to adapt to a car, and quite another to start pushing it beyond what the team itself thought possible. What Hamilton does in the race at the Chinese GP is not only maintaining the level, it is raising it at the most critical moment, the long runs where the real performance of a car is really defined. While other teams begin to suffer with degradation, while performance drops lap after lap, Hamilton does exactly the opposite. It maintains the rhythm, stabilizes it, and, at certain times, even improves it within the same session. And that completely breaks the simulation models that Ferrari had before the race. because it was not planned that the SF26 could behave like this. This is where one of the most shocking data of the entire weekend comes in: the difference in degradation compared to Mercedes. While Russell loses around 0.4 seconds in just 5 laps, Hamilton only gives up 0.1 seconds in that same period. This is not a small advantage, it is an outrage at a strategic level. It means that Hamilton can lengthen stints, better manage stopping windows, and above all, maintain constant pressure on cars that, in theory, should be superior. And yet, there is a brutal contradiction. Because despite this performance in curves and management, Ferrari still has a structural problem that does not disappear: the lack of power and efficiency on the straight. The car loses time in acceleration sections and energy deployment, and that limits any real attempt to fight for victory. That is to say, Hamilton is getting maximum performance from a package that is still incomplete. And that's exactly what shocks engineers. Because when they analyze the data, they see something that doesn't quite fit. The car has clear, measurable, obvious limitations, but the result on the track does not reflect those limitations with the same starkness. The reason? Hamilton is compensating for those weaknesses with his driving. And not in an aggressive or spectacular way, but in the most dangerous way possible, with precision. Each curve is traced with surgical cleaning, minimizing slippage, taking care of tire temperature, keeping the car within the perfect window for longer than its rivals. There are no unnecessary movements, no exaggerated corrections. Everything is calculated. This has a direct effect. It turns a limited car into a competitive car. And that's where Ferrari begins to understand what it really has at hand. Because it's no longer just about Hamilton being fast. It's about him maximizing the car's potential at a level that redefines the team's internal expectations. Even from the outside, the analyzers begin to talk about something very specific. The Ferrari chassis is already in the reference group. That is to say, in medium and fast corners the car is at the level of the best, and with a driver like Hamilton, that strength is amplified even more. But of course, that opens an even bigger door. Because if the main problem is in the engine, and the rest of the car starts to work at this level, so Ferrari is not as far away as it seemed. And Hamilton knows it. That is why his approach throughout his career is not emotional, it is not reactive. It is cold, analytical, almost obsessive with every detail. His radio communication reflects this perfectly. He identifies exact points for improvement, insists on the same weaknesses, and maintains absolute calm even in the most demanding moments. That's not just experience, it's technical leadership. And that is the point at which this story changes dimension. Because when a driver not only performs but begins to guide the development of the car from within, the entire project can revolve around him. And that's exactly what's starting to happen here. Because Hamilton's podium in China is not the end of the story, it is the warning. A warning that within Ferrari they have already understood perfectly. Because when the race ends and all the data is analyzed, there is one conclusion that begins to prevail above any other. The current ceiling of the SF26 is not set by the car, it is set by the engine. And that changes absolutely everything. Because if the Ferrari's biggest problem is located, identified, and isolated, power and straight-line efficiency, then everything else begins to take on enormous value. The chassis works, the tire management is outstanding, the cornering behavior is at the level of the best. And now they have a driver capable of squeezing all that to the limit. That is to say, Ferrari is no longer lost. Ferrari has direction. And that direction has its own name: Lewis Hamilton. This is where the real impact becomes evident. Because what Hamilton has done this weekend is not only impressive for the result, but for the moment in which it happens. Second Grand Prix with the team, a car that is not yet fully optimized, a project under construction, and yet, it is already setting the internal performance standard. That's not normal. That's what drivers who change teams from within do. And there is a detail that closes the circle. Throughout the race, while other drivers enter phases of stress, make mistakes, or simply lose performance, Hamilton remains completely cool, focused, methodical. His tone on the radio, his way of communicating, his way of executing, everything reflects a driver who is not only competing but is building something. And that's what impresses engineers the most. Because they're not just seeing speed, they're seeing total control of the process. They are seeing a driver who understands the car, who feels it, who translates it into data, and who also converts it into performance on the track. And when those three things align, the results are no longer circumstantial. They become inevitable. But here comes the final twist. Because despite all this, Ferrari did not win the race. Mercedes did it, and with a difference of more than 25 seconds. And that distance is reality. It is the reminder that there is still work to do, that the project is not complete, that SF26 still has important limitations. But it is also the perfect contrast, because while Mercedes wins by pure technical superiority, Ferrari achieves a podium that should not be so solid, and it does so thanks to a factor that cannot be measured so easily: the driver. And this is where the great conclusion of all this analysis is born. Hamilton is not only back, Hamilton is elevating Ferrari, and if this is the level you can reach with an incomplete car, the real question is no longer whether Ferrari can win. The real question is how long it will take to give Hamilton the car he needs. Because when that happens, this will no longer be a surprise, and will become a real threat for all of Formula One. What happened at the Chinese GP was not an isolated result. It was not a specific circumstance nor a simple good weekend. It was the first real test of how far this project can go when all the pieces begin to align. Because Hamilton didn't just get a podium. Hamilton changed the internal perception of the team. Suddenly, a car that generated doubts becomes a solid foundation. A project that seemed to be in the construction phase is beginning to show clear signs of real competitiveness. And most importantly, Ferrari stops wondering if they can be at the top and starts wondering what they need to win. That change in mentality is enormous, because they are no longer chasing answers, they now have a path. And that path has been marked by Hamilton from the first moment in which he understood the car better than anyone, even better than the team itself expected. That's what really impacts. It's not just the pace, it's not just the tire management, it's not just the consistency. It's the ability to transform a car with limitations into a competitive tool, and at the same time guide its evolution from within. Not just any pilot does that. That's what those who mark eras do. But there is something that cannot be ignored. Ferrari is not at the top yet. The difference with Mercedes remains large, and as long as that disadvantage in power and efficiency exists, victories will continue to be difficult. Let me know in the comments what you think about all this.